Welcome back to another episode of RecTalk. I'm your host Nitin, and I'm the founder of rectools.io. You might have heard of us already. I'm always banging on about it on LinkedIn. So if you guys are a recruitment supply business that supply into the recruitment industry and you want an increase on your inbound leads and your product awareness and your marketing strategy, we need to be talking. You can claim your free listing. Everybody gets listed. We have a whole of market directory at rectools.io. So you're on there whether you like it or not. But you can claim your listing and benefit from Google Analytics, lead forensics, a content sharing strategy, rec perks, product demos, and a whole host of different stuff from £99 a month. So drop me a note. We can get the conversation rolling. We are still looking for partnerships as well. We are partnering with Zodec, which you'll see on the screen around here somewhere, probably. We're always on the lookout for new partners, and you'll see more from us and from Zodec shortly. My guest today is the founder of The Base Mindset. You probably already know him. I think he's finally recovered from Kilimanjaro.
Still recovering.
Chris O'Connell.
Appreciate
you being here, mate. Thank you very much for your time.
Mate, delighted to be on. I've watched this podcast a couple of times and I'm honoured to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Honestly, thank you. Really appreciate it. We were supposed to do this a couple of weeks ago, but we had a bit of a setback, so I'm glad we finally got this one in the diary. So I think let's talk about the business that you grew, and no, let's not do that because you've done that enough times already on multiple different podcasts. Chris has got a fantastic and very interesting story of growing, scaling a business, going for investment, the downfalls of that can happen, the pitfalls to look out for. He's got a lot of insight in that. So I suggest that you Google him and you'll see a ton of the podcasts that he's done already with that. One of the things that you do at the moment, though, is offer kind of business mentoring, coaching, and NED services, right? To recruitment businesses that were kind of like mine a year ago, sort of growing, scaling, where the business owners kind of need somebody who's been there, done it, and got the t-shirt to sort of lean on. And I think what would be really interesting to talk about today is sort of business development. But heading into 2024 and 2025, given the change that we're going through as an industry.
Right.
So if you want to kick us off with, give us a bit of insight on terms of the sorts of inquiries that you're getting from sort of your customer base at the minute. What are they missing?
I think I'm in a fortunate position where I kind of grew up in a very focused 360 environment, so I kind of learned the hard way. So 360 is kind of in my blood, and I always believe that if you've got one job on or 1,000 jobs on, you should always be doing some form of business development. And every call that you make, every action that you do is a form of business development. I think people don't realise that if you put a comment on LinkedIn, you're effectively business developing yourself. And I think people get scared by the term business development. It doesn't have to be what you think it might be. So I think that up until about 18 months ago, a year ago, the market was good in most different sectors, and I think a lot of consultancies and agencies took their foot off the gas and allowed their consultants to what I call suck on the teat. What I mean by that is just be fed roles and drink the milk, and then become a little bit self-entitled. And when that milk ran out, they're left with a lot of disillusioned people who are now asked to go and farm themselves. Either they don't want to do it or they don't know how to do it. So the inquiries that I'm getting, in essence, the market being as it is has kind of worked in my favour personally, because I'm brought in to help agencies unwire that thinking and that mindset, and then build out a process whereby they are getting consistent revenue off their own back, and not just any old job, but quality jobs as well. So I think that BD's having a renaissance, and I think it's good. I'm all for 90, 270, 180 recruitment as well, but even if you're just doing a candidate delivery thing, why can't you business develop with
should be, right?
candidates as well?
Yeah,
so,
yeah, absolutely.
So even myself as well, on LinkedIn I get millions of views a month. I'm doing quite well on there, and a lot of the stuff that I get is inbound. But I also have a business development lead generation thing going on as well. So when people look at my profile or whatever, they're sent a message. And for me, as I said at the start of this, you can never take your foot off the gas for business development.
It's almost like when you realise the impact of taking your foot off the gas, it's too late. You know what I mean? It's not an immediate it's not an immediate sort of stop, is it?
No.
The vehicle slows slowly, and it's all, and then getting that restarted again takes a lot more. Yeah. And it was just like like cycling, right? Yeah. You know, you've stopped pedaling and you've coasted, but eventually you're going to start slowing down. Yeah. And you're going to feel the burn when you start then pedaling faster again to pick up that speed and momentum. But
there's different types of business development. I think people think business development is, you know, literally going on someone's door and knocking on it cold, or picking up a phone, making a cold call. I think still do that anyway.
But it can be, right?
Why wouldn't you do a cold call?
That's not the only thing.
No, but business development can be, you know, the archetypal specking out candidates, but you know, you can send some industry insight to a client. You know, you can lead gen from candidates. You can book meetings. You know, if I was to hold a workshop now with one of my customers, we went round and round and round and round. We could probably think about 100 different ways to business development, and it's making sure that that's woven into a weekly activity. So I've got this day plan and this week plan, this 90-day plan that I implement. That's different for each client I work with, but it provides a bit of variety and gets the consultant thinking and enjoying and getting into that mindset. Oh, actually, if I do that activity for X amount of time, it will generate this. And kind of like, instead of just being a transactional recruiter where you're getting a job in and you're finding a candidate and you're swiping the barcode or whatever you want to call it, kind of thing.
You know, like I said, me and Sean used to call it scanning the item and putting it in the bag. And it's like, you're not a recruiter, you're just servicing a particular transaction, right? Yeah. But okay, so here's one for you then. So because there's so many different types of business development activity now, certainly it's evolved a lot since we were kind of on the tools running the desk. Yeah. But you know, marketing plays a big part of that as well.
Absolutely.
You know, you're commenting on LinkedIn, putting on polls and that kind of thing. If you've got consultants who are reluctant to do certain things, so let's take, you know, utilizing LinkedIn as an example. Yeah. Through a whole host of reasons, could be personal anxiety, could be social anxiety, it could just be not, you know, imposter syndrome, right? Of course, yeah. Who's at fault there? You know, is it a case that we need to focus our attention and energy on training and developing that individual in doing those activities, or do we really need to be focusing on what's this consultant actually comfortable doing and get them doing more of that?
Well, I think it takes two to tango. I think if you're in a sales or recruitment role and you're not willing to step out your comfort zone now and again and put yourself out there, it's a sales role ultimately, then either you're in trouble, you shouldn't have been hired, or you shouldn't have wanted to be hired. So I think it's a double-edged sword where the leadership needs to help coach and embed that, and the person on the receiving end needs to be open and curious about that. And you're right. I mean, I am what I am. I'm a leadership coach. I'm a mentor. I'm big on LinkedIn, all this kind of stuff to an extent. But I have my moments as well. I get social anxiety, and I get all these imposter syndrome still as well, even though I teach people how not to have that. So all human beings. So my answer to that is to have a human-led approach to it. And maybe have some one-to-ones with the person from the leadership team or the leader himself, and talk through and find out why that person might feel a little bit like that, and maybe coach them and guide them and that kind of stuff. Can
I challenge it a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
Right? Is it not the responsibility of the leader, the business owner, and or the operations sort of director, whatever position that person's in? Yeah. Is it not their responsibility to put the right people in the right places? Though,
yeah,
right?
that's what I said at the start.
I'll give you an example. Yeah. We had a chap who was incredibly good at speccing candidates, really niche candidates into really niche businesses. And he won us some really big PSLs off the back of that. But he would absolutely outright refuse to use LinkedIn. Unless he was just inboxing
and annoying.
DMing candidates. So he wouldn't put any content out. He didn't want to put content out. Right. He wouldn't use things like Odro or Hinterview. You know, we were using Hinterview as a business at the time. Others are available. Yeah. No, I've got to say that. But, you know, he wouldn't do that. We had an automation tech kind of inbuilt to that. He didn't want to use that. He didn't want to use any of the tech stack we were providing. But he was still producing results at the end of it. So me and my former business partner would be at loggerheads all the time, because he would want him to be more of a well-rounded consultant. Yeah. And I understand the reasons why. Yeah. But my take on it was, look, what he's producing is good. What he's good at, he's very good at. And what he's not good at, he's not going to do because he's not good at it. So is that not our job to kind of be like,
But it is.
You're left-footed. I'm not going to put you on right back.
No, I think you've got to understand what people's strengths are. You've got to put the right players in the right positions. But ultimately, you mentioned good there about 6 or 7 times. Is what do you want your business to be? Do you want it to be good, or do you want it to be great? And sometimes the difference between good and great is getting that person to say that you're billing 250, 300 grand a year. If we did this for a period of the next 3 months and we gave it a go, you could bill 400 grand a year. So it's one of them where
you need the buy-in though, isn't it? That's sometimes incredibly difficult to get with certainly with the new generation of kind of headstrong Zillennials and Gen Z. Do you think that is playing a part in sort of the increase of inbound inquiries? Because I mean, our generation, we went into sales roles, knowing it was a sales role, accepting it was a sales role, and being kind of weirdly excited by the fact that it was a sales role, right?
Yeah.
Whereas there seems to be a lot of people in the industry at the minute who are kind of reluctantly or not, they don't want to accept that it's a sales role. They would prefer it to be a marketing position, right? Or a service role.
I agree with that. I think back in the day when we were doing it, giving away our age a little bit now, we were told to run through a brick wall and we did. And it's kind of like what worked then doesn't work now. If you acted like that as a leader now, you wouldn't have any people, would you? So I think there is an element of that, but also I work with some very young CEOs who are like in their mid-20s and 28, 20, and they're much more measured than I ever was. So I think there's elements of, yes, there's self-entitlement and with some of these people, and they don't know they were born, but on the flip side, there are some people out there that I think are ahead of their time in terms of how they. So I think it's about how we try not to generalize too much, and I think that if you were to ask me, is it easier now than it is then? It's a difficult one. What do you think to that?
It's a good point. I think it was easier then.
Why?
Because there was less noise and less distraction.
Yeah.
Because I love AI, I love recruitment tech, right? That is my space.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much noise and so many different products that recruiters have kind of moved away from the core job. But at the same time, I think when we were on the tools, consumers, being both candidate and client, weren't as clued up to the process.
I agree with that.
And so everything that we did was slightly different, slightly new, and slightly nuanced. Now everybody seems to know the game.
Yeah.
You know? And don't tell your recruiter where you're interviewing, because all they want to know is this.
I know.
And there's like things like social have really kind of pushed that ahead.
Yeah.
The video, the content thing, and what you end up having is like, through the use of smoke and mirrors, shit people are getting eyes on their product.
Yeah.
While good people are kind of struggling to make noise because they don't get the marketing bit. They get the sales bit.
That's very true.
They just don't know how to market themselves.
I mean, back in the day, marketing, I was like, I wouldn't even shit on them, for want of a better term. That's an awful way of putting it. But now, like, I've gone from like I wouldn't do any personal branding, didn't even know what LinkedIn was, to like Mr. Personal Branding and Mr. LinkedIn, and also when I was running a big business, work from anywhere or work from home was very new. And this one girl wanted to say, "Can I do 2 days at home?" And I looked at her like she was, an alien, And it's a bit like if you phone up a tech client in the USA, they're like, "Hello, mate, how are you doing?" Kind of like they absolutely love recruiters. Whereas you try, so I think that. What do I think? I think that the market was totally different back then. It probably was a little bit easier back then. I think that you can have too much technology as well. I think I love all these AI products, these automation things that are going on, all that kind of stuff. But if you're constantly relying on, I also this whole kind of 180, 360 delivery and sourcing model. I've had clients where they've got like 9 people resourcing and working on a role, and I'm like, mate,
that is ridiculous.
What's going on with that? So I think
granularly, if you break that down to what that fee's worth, you're all working at a loss.
Yeah, but.
Again, what we've got there is I think there's just so much more noise today, right? And because of that, it's harder to distinguish who's right and who's wrong, and what products are right for that business or not.
Yeah.
I mean, I speak to quite a lot of we don't do consultancy, right? It's something that we'll move into in the future, but at the moment, everything on our platform is self-service. But I get a lot of inbound inquiries like, can you review our tech stack? Because I think we're paying for shit that we don't need.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you've been sold the dream, but like all of your tech stack doesn't necessarily complement each other. It just, you bought into the hype and we're like, that's what I need. That's what I need. And I'll give you an example. We had a guy who, I was speaking to a chap who was using Job Adder as a CRM, but then was also paying for Bullhorn. And I was like,
right,
why?
Yeah.
What's Bullhorn doing for you that the Job Adder's job distribution tool doesn't do? And he was like, well, you know, it's got all these different features and this, that, and the other, and candidate, the applicant tracking piece and whatever. And I was like, that's great.
Yeah.
But how many of your team are actually using that functionality? Yeah, no, to be honest, no, they just use it to fire the jobs out. So I was like, save yourself the money that you're spending a year on that.
Yeah.
Because that'll equate to at least like the salary of one extra consultant on headcount.
I totally agree with this. I'm pro tech, and I think some of the tech out there is revolutionary and helpful. Brilliant. But if you was to ask me what the most important tech you could have, or thing you can have in recruitment is building relationships. So the tech can kind of open the door into the room, kind of thing. But then you've got to have that relationship. So I think a good agency has the blend of some good tech, but they're constantly engendering this let's get in front of the customer, let's have a conversation. How many conversations have you had today? And also how you communicate internally as a leadership team. If you're constantly communicating with your team on Slack or WhatsApp or an email, that's great. But try to have...
But then that's what they consider to be communication.
Yeah, but then...
So you're then encouraging them to have relationships and communicate
like that with their clients.
That's what they're doing.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's sort of... Yeah, it's funny. I spoke to an old manager of mine who's setting up his own business. And we were talking about kind of frustrations that he's had and where he was and stuff. And he was like, yeah, well, look, I'm in Birmingham and I'm managing the Birmingham and sort of the West Midlands desk.
Yeah.
And why we were doing so well was because I could, at the drop of a hat, go and meet my client. You know, take them out for lunches and all. The pre-COVID life, right? He was still going ahead with that, and his business unit was slapping on 50 to 60 grand a month.
Yeah.
During a time where like the rest of the business isn't doing so great. And so he's like, I'm gonna, I went to have my notice in because I'm setting up on my own. I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
And they offered him, well, what if we gave you Manchester and Liverpool and London? And he went, it wouldn't work. Because at the drop of a hat, I can't get down to London or go to Manchester or go to Liverpool.
Yeah.
I can't.
No, of course.
You know, what works for him in his market was that face-to-face piece.
Yeah. And I think absolutely right. But also, if you're doing international recruitment, why can't you sit in on the interviews yourself on a Zoom call? Why can't you have your client meetings on a Zoom call or Teams call? You know, why can't you conduct things on a Loom meeting? I think so. If you can't be there in person, the next best thing is to do a video. If you can't do a phone call, don't send a text message necessarily. The power of a voice note as well. You know, I think these kind of things are just they make a big difference.
Yeah. I wish. I look back sometimes and think, I wish voice notes were a thing when we were on the tools. I would have cleaned house.
I don't know what it is about. Maybe
the number of finance directors that would have known my voice. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe we've got good voices, but I think it's just. I just think it's. I think a lot of people. But the thing is, there's no excuse not to do that. Oh, I can't leave a voice note on WhatsApp. Well, why not? Why can't you do that?
I used to get. I can't have them on WhatsApp. What do you mean?
Yeah.
It's personal.
Yeah.
To them, not to you.
Yeah.
So now go be personal. Right?
Yeah. And this is
the worst thing you can do. It's funny. I was saying to Conan off camera earlier. I was like, in sales, we have this mentality. Like the good salespeople always have this kind of mantra, right? It's that it's better to apologise than to ask for permission.
Right, got you.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Oh my god.
Always.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, that sounds a bit.
If you don't ask, we never know anyway.
But it's true, right? It's always better to apologise.
Yeah.
And we say this to my sales guys all the time, guys. I would rather I have to apologise to a client because they feel you overstepped the mark.
Oh, totally.
You know, because 1 out of 100 might be like, well, that was a bit weird. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
But the 99 won't complain about it. Rather than you going out and asking 100 people for permission to voice note them
don't tell me.
And then ignoring you.
It's even like what frustrates me as well, that a consultant will work hard to get in front of a client, i.e. on the phone call or get their interaction. They won't ask for the interview. They won't ask for the offer. They won't ask for the meet. They'll talk about how great the business is. They won't talk about the product or have a call to action. It's you've got to ask these questions.
It's the always be closing mentality, isn't it? Like some of these things that when we were younger we didn't really get until we like, you're like, oh fucking hell, come on guys, trial close.
Yeah, but I was very assumptive. I was a contract recruiter, right? And I was used to selling candidates. And Joe Blocks is he's going to be with you at 10 o'clock tomorrow. You know, like telling the client, and 9 times out of 10 they say no or maybe. But the one time they do, you wouldn't have had that if you didn't ask. So I think it's about how I think where. We can do all the operations and training and coaching, but it's how you position yourself in your mind. If you're a consultant, right, and you're going to the client, please, sir or madam, can I have your job? You failed. Yeah. You're the expert, you're the consultant. Act in that way before you even make the phone call.
But then that feeds into imposter syndrome, doesn't it? Because then you're like, fundamentally, there's a bigger issue here, which is either you don't buy into what you're supposed to be doing, or you feel you're peddling shit. Which is again, as a temp consultant. So again, you know, if I've got a temp consultant that's like, I can't, you know, we used to call them straight recommend them into a job. They'll be with you on Monday.
Yeah.
By 12 o'clock, if you don't like them, send them home. I'll pay them for the half their day. If you like them, keep them on. Right, you box that job off. And I used to get consultants be like, I can't straight rec that candidate. Why?
Yeah.
Oh, I just don't. Well, then it's not a good candidate.
No.
Right? You've got to back yourself.
Totally.
You've got to know that if you say to, look, Mr. Client, I'm going to send this person in on Monday.
Yeah.
They are going to be there at 8:30.
Yeah.
And they will work the entire day.
Yes.
However, for whatever reason, if you don't like them, you can let them go at 12 o'clock. In fact, you can text me.
I know.
And I will let them go at 12 o'clock.
The issue you've got, right, is some people listen at this, the really consultative ones who know their market, which I advocate as well. They'll be like, oh, this is very kind of salesy. But I think that you have to have that consultative knowledge and understand and build rapport, but you've got to have this closing sales mentality. Yeah. And I think that I wouldn't say it's a dying breed, but as a business owner and NED and coach, I instill this kind of always be closing in that kind of, because you can have a conversation with a client till the cows come home, but you just need to know whether the guy's going to buy from you or not. If he's not, why are you wasting your time?
Yeah, Benjamin Dennehy calls it qualify out rather than qualify in. You know, a lot of salespeople try to qualify people in to their sales process. Are you going to buy from me? Please buy from me. Well, you know, if you go in with the mentality of, I need to find out very early on, is this clown going to buy from me or not? Because if you're wasting my time, I need to move on.
Absolutely.
If you're not wasting my time and I can add value, then we take you down the funnel.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of mentality, isn't it? Whereas I think that feeds then from KPIs, because when you're then going, you need to have 50 conversations a week. Okay, I now need to dial the phone out 100 times for 50 to answer. Yeah. And then I can tell my boss, I did my 50 calls this week. Yeah. Nobody bought. Because you were qualifying in 50 people.
I'd sooner you have 5 conversations with clients than 50 clients with a butcher, baker and a candle maker. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it.
Basically. So the other thing, mate, is consultants get delusions of grandeur, and so do businesses. They've got 14 jobs on, and the client sounds great, but I'd sooner you have 5 jobs on where right, Mr. Client, we've spent an hour on the phone, we've got a really good understanding of exactly the sort of person you're looking for. What we're going to do now is send you an email with the JD on it. Feel free to make any amendments or tweaks you want with that JD, because we might have missed something. The email is going to say, when are you going to first interview, when are you going to second interview, when are you going to offer, when are you going to pay. If you email me that back, we'll start working on it straight away for you. Then shut the fuck up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, have a qualified process, not just a qualified JD.
So where's your head at with KPIs then in today's world?
I think the right KPIs delivered in the right way are an absolute lifeblood and should be a mainstay that everyone buys into.
Okay.
And what you need is an understanding basically of the number of CVs you need to send to get the number of interviews you need to get the number of placements. They're the metrics you need. That's it.
Now, so those metrics there then, that data, is that organisation-wide or is that as granular as the desk?
Both. I think you need to understand what your conversion ratios are as a perm business, a contract business, and holistically as well. And then if you was to pick one of your consultants, Sally, how many deals do you want to do every month? 4. Well, did you realise over the last 2 years to get one placement, you've needed to do 4 interviews? So if you want 4 placements, you need 16 interviews this next month. And do you realise that you're sending 5 CVs to get 1 interview? So 5 times 16, what's my maths like? You know, that's 90 interviews. You need to send 90 CVs to get that. So let's break that down. That's 20 a week, 23 a week. So if we send 5 quality CVs per day for the next and I will help you navigate and map that out, we're pretty much going to guarantee those 4 deals, Sally. How does that sound? That sounds great. Well, let's get on with it then.
Okay.
You seem sceptical.
Yeah, I think this for me, my mentality has always been there's too many moving parts, right? I've seen consultants have absolutely storming 1 month and do absolutely nothing the month after, and put the same amount of activity in, and so I don't. I'm of the mentality that's not a. You didn't put the right level of attitude in, or
no,
but there are a lot of variables.
If I was to enhance what I just said there a bit more, so yes, you need to do the numbers, but the numbers need to be quality numbers. So it's about how you map out that market properly. This whole inch wide, mile deep thing as well. And there's so many people out there that say they're specialists that they're not. So I work with the team and go, over the next 90 days, what's your target audience? Are you going to go for small SMEs, mediums or large? In what geographical sector? So if you're doing .NET or Java, don't just send .NET and Java people to everybody. Why don't you segment that into .NET and Java who've worked in retail and candidates, and only speak to .NET Java candidates in retail, pick the leads, get loads of retail clients, and then in the afternoon only speak to .NET managers in retail, and literally, and then week 2 do manufacturing .NET, and then still do those same numbers. So you're having quality and quantity as well. I think where people go wrong is they set the KPIs and they're still a little bit loose with it.
No, that's fair. A lot of business owners will set the KPIs though, won't they? Very few do what you did there, which was sit down with Sally and go, well, what do you want to do? And let's agree these achievable, measurable.
Yeah, because I think you need to have some global holistic numbers, but I think then probably does need to be a little bit flexed individually as well, but ultimately it's understanding that not everyone's going to be Ronaldo. You can't have everybody doing 4 deals a month. But no. I think that individual.
But as business owners, that's what we want, though, right? Yeah. We want the fucking the superstar team. You know what I mean? Yeah. We want the dream team or the Real Madrid of back in the day. And I think we kind of almost fuck ourselves over with that, because you're aiming so high that you're you might have people that are good but could be great. But because they're only good and they're not great, you're kind of letting them slip by because you're looking for this team. Why can't you do it like me? Yeah, no, absolutely. But I on that point, I'd sooner have 8 or 9 or 10 really good people than 20 average ones as well. But you've got to accept that not everybody's going to be like that. But I think that you have to be clear and set the right expectations and boundaries as well. Although I said there needs to be a little bit of flex, what you can't have is different rules for different people too much, because then it's just anarchy. Yeah. Or is it an adult working environment? Well, yeah, but you can say. Yeah, what I mean by that is if we're sitting down, we all work in the same business. You've got a different set of KPIs to me, but that's because fundamentally, as a business owner, I sit down and we agree objectives and targets. So we're both on the same commission structure. We both have the potential of earning the same amount of money. But I'm being realistic as a business owner and saying, like, Chris, I know I can get 300 out of you for this year, but I know I'm only really going to get like 90, maybe 100 at a push from John. There's no point in me making you guys work to the same targets and me holding you to the same standards because John's in it. You might have the same experience as you, but John's in a new market. It's cold. No, that's fair and understandable. But I think when I say the same standards, I mean the same types of work ethic where we've agreed this, mate. You know, and you've got to hit that kind of thing as opposed to. I think there's some flex there. And that comes down to communication. And I think that I think the leadership team needs to be. I think where I've won to an extent is that I still love recruitment. I still love like the nitty gritty of helping a consultant close a deal. And I think sometimes the owners need to be down with the kids as much as they can be, like sitting in their tower looking at a spreadsheet. You know. How important a role do you think data plays, though, in a business owner's decision making? what they do.
I think that the database, people get wound up and excited by the database. You can have the best database in the world. I think most of the databases out there at the moment are much of a muchness, but it's the quality of that data that's on the database, and then it's how you then extrapolate that data out. So I think understanding and embedding a culture of adding new contacts to your database, candidate and client, and coding them up is really important. And I think a lot of CVs sit in consultants' inboxes, or a lot of consultants aren't focused on, right, if I'm doing FMCG, I want to add X number of new FMCG clients to my portfolio. So a lot of consultancies or agencies are thinking short term, where's the next deal? I encourage them to think short, medium, long term. So in the next 12 weeks, we can forget about how many deals you want to do. Let's move that conversation away. Where do you want to be with your business? How many new managers do you want to add? How many new candidates do you want to add? So that kind of stuff's really important.
That's hard though when you're trying to keep the lights on, isn't it? Like, we've got to acknowledge that for most business owners, it would be great to be able to sit and think 3 months, 6 months.
I disagree with that. I think people. I think that's an excuse, because I think if you have if you have a dedicated approach where people are adding new contacts, that's a form of business development as well. So one of the things I go into businesses and say, let's do an analysis of the last 2 years where you've had an interview, job or placement at. Right, so you've got 100 clients in the last 2 years we've had a CV, job, interview or placement at, and you've got 300 managers. So you've only got 2 managers per client. That tells me we're popping in, popping out, we're not doing enough. Yeah. So our objective would be to get from 2 managers per client to 4. Let's divvy them out and give Sally 15, John 15. Right, go back into those clients, sell perm, sell contract, upsell, and add new managers. So it's a form of BDs, and so it's the type of information is the number and the quality of the managers we've got on our database. Are they coded up in the right way? And it's what are the trends? How long is it taking us to get someone from inception or start date to a new deal? How long should that be? It's just sitting down and looking at different data around. If we was to improve our average margin by 1.5%, how much money would that mean? It will mean this amount of money. So therefore, do we need to do some negotiation training? I just think. So the power of holding a good board meeting like that as well is really important. So some of that stuff can be really valuable,
No, I agree. I think fundamentally where the problem lies is that usually these guys that went off and set up these businesses and have grown it to this level, they were really, really good billers, but they had very little to no business training and business kind of management,
I agree.
Skills. Even the ones that were, when you go back to kind of the big day when you worked at the big agency.
Yeah.
Even the senior managers and the directors there, they didn't have any kind of P&L responsibility as such, or cash flow kind of understanding as such. It was always kind of like, just hit those numbers and you'll be fine, because it's kind of spoon fed to them. So I always kind of feel a bit bad for these business owners, because it's sort of like. When you're looking from the outside, it's easy to say that. Yeah. And it's easy to be able to pick the flaws, but it's kind of like at the same time, you've got to be a little bit like, I get it, because actually no one's ever, how would you handle
No, I understand that. And I obviously have that issue a lot with my clients coming in, and when I get under the bonnet with them and they can't even spell the word forecast, I give them a cuddle and help them with that. And I think that's why, I'm not just saying this for my own benefit, but whether it's me or anybody, if you're unsure about something like that, you've got to plug your gaps and get someone else in to help you. A good CEO isn't all things to all people. But you've got to treat your back office and your operations with just the same as important, if not more, than your sales. And I think that's another thing that people forget about. Let's get the next deal, and they've got all these invoices out, and they've got no process to get the money in. Yeah. It's not a deal to the money in the bank.
Their heads thinking, oh no, what's happened here? Yeah. We're like, well, pretty obvious. Yeah, I always liken it to you got a bucket with holes in it. The answer isn't to just turn more taps on to fill it up. You've got to plug those holes. And unfortunately, the salesman mentality always kind of creeps out sometimes. Yeah. And you end up going, well, I just need to build more. That's not an answer.
No, exactly.
That's never an answer. I need to build more isn't a solution to a problem. No. That's a magic wand fix.
No, but I think mentality is you can have a short, medium and long term mentality and cover all the bases as well, because actually the next deal is really important, obviously, but if you're always doing the next deal, you're gonna get a lot of wrinkles and a lot of grey hairs.
That's all you're gonna do. Yeah, kick the can down the road. Zombie businesses, right? It was a term I learned recently. That describes a lot of them.
Yeah.
So, okay, what you mentioned earlier, there's like all these different types of kind of business development activities that people could be doing. If I'm a business owner and I'm sat there going, shit, I really need to up my BD, I need to get my guys to do more.
Yeah.
You know, what would you say that the three most effective types of business development are right now, given the kind of the condition of the market we're in?
Well, I think it's nothing revolutionary, but if you don't send a CV to a client, you don't want to get any interviews.
Yeah.
So
mailer and spec strategy?
Proper spec, I do a course on this, proper spec out to 30, 40 managers on a weekly basis that you pretty much know will be at least interested in seeing the CV. But a client will only open a CV if the subject line is on point and the content within that, and put a call to action. So it's important that you don't just send the CV, you sell that in the right, succinct way. So I think that's really, really important. I think that before you even embark on BDing, as I've said, is having a very clear market map and a strategy around that. So I think that's important.
Effectively mapping your market. Yeah,
properly. Okay. Speccing out the CVs, and I'm gonna say there's loads of like cold calling, and it's a numbers game and getting meetings, all that. But I'm gonna go with a controversial one for some, but one that's worked for me. It's that personal branding element of it, whereby we touched on it before. Unfortunately, in this market, in this day and age, if you're not putting yourself out there, you're going to get swallowed up. So, on your LinkedIn profile, I think it's people are buying from people. There's so many agencies, sub 10 brands out there that I work with that have billion-dollar businesses out there, and they've won their clients out there. They've won their clients by, they saw a video on LinkedIn about what they're doing, or do a podcast, all this kind of stuff. So for me, it's doing that. It's commenting on people's posts. It's putting some content out there, personal and business, and getting the clients to come to you. So the other two are kind of like making cold calls and speccing out and outbound. It's kind of
proactive piece.
Why can't you get it inbound? Yeah. A bit of both,
Yeah, yeah.
So marketing.
No, yeah, I agree. And totally. I think because I had this conversation with a business owner not long ago, because I was sort of like, they're in a very specialist market, right? And I was like, you've got two people in your business who are very good on camera, because they do a lot of blogs or a lot of like posts and stuff like with their own video content, some funny shit on TikTok, that kind of thing. And I was like, why are you not doing sort of mini like podcasts, like virtual ones, but with your clients? And they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, if you ring up a talent acquisition person and go, hey, can I pop into the office, or can we have a half an hour Teams meeting? I'm really busy, mate. I've got a lot of stuff to do. I've got a lot of stuff going on. If you ring up a talent acquisition person and say, hey, I'm not sure if you know, we do an industry podcast within this specialist industry that we're in.
It's a great shout.
Why don't we, can you come on for half an hour and we'll record it, it gives you some clout out there. All of your competitors that you try and headhunt candidates from are all connected to me in my space. So we're doing each other a favour.
We'll get their CEO on it.
And he was like, but what's the point in that? And I was like, because it's a half an hour fucking client meeting. There's things we used to beg and borrow and steal to try and get in front of a client for. You've got a ready-made product to do that with. Plus the content that comes off the back of that. Plus the fact that actually, as a specialist agency in your market, your candidates will know who you are and come to you as well.
Totally.
And he was like, now it makes a lot of sense.
I think we were talking off air, right? I'm a podcast host myself, and, I've been invited on a number of different podcasts. And I never really say no, because a podcast can take an hour to record. You can get 6 or 7 different types of sound bites from that. And that content can go viral. It can go to thousands and thousands of people. So your idea of, as a recruitment consultant, asking your key clients to jump on an interview or a video or a Zoom or a podcast, so they can extol the virtues of themselves as leaders and their values and their business, and you're offering that as a service. Why wouldn't a client say yes to that? And it's going to your network of thousands of people. Happy days.
And they do. This is the thing, right? And they do say yes to that, and they'll give you that time, but then they'll remember that as well. And so that head of talent gives you that time, you've managed to get some face time with them. If they get even 2 or 3 inbound candidates and go, oh, I saw you on a podcast with such and such an agency. Yeah. Oh, right. But you got brand advocates saying your brand constantly to that business.
But I've encouraged some of my clients who've got like 30, 40, 50 people in there. I'll come down and help you. Why don't you get some podcast equipment or some microphones and ask some questions to your top consultants. So tell me about the FMCG market, for example. What's been going on? Ask them 6 or 7 questions about the market. Chop it up into a minute little shots. Get them out there. How powerful is that?
Yeah.
Do that. Do this on your key candidates, and it's like, all right, and it's. I think it's difficult being on camera. It's not easy.
No, it's uncomfortable for a lot of people, right? And I get it. I do. I'll sit and do this because you forget that that's there.
Yeah.
But if you sit me in front of the laptop and I'm on interview and I've got to talk about Chris and like, oh yeah, you've got coming in and blah blah blah. I stumble over my words. I'm in and I, and I'm like,
I've done hundreds of these, mate. I still get nervous. I still fuck it up.
Yeah, and this is how you say to my guys all the time. Like, I get it. It's not comfortable. It's not natural, but it's different. Yeah, and that's a start.
Yeah.
Because in a world where everybody's sending emails, if you send a video, it's going to get opened.
Also, as well, yeah. But like, if I'm a hiring manager, right, and I get asked this question, like, how can I'm a candidate? How can I get myself above everyone else? Well, don't just send your bloody CV and hope. Put a picture on your CV for once. Send the manager a little video. Walk in there with your CV. In this day and age, you've got to do something like that. Otherwise, you might as well not bother.
Yeah, you got to. Yeah, you got to create a little noise and a bit of bang.
Yeah, and if as a recruitment consultancy you're not doing it, then your candidate's not going to do it.
But then all you're going to get is candidates that come into you for that transactional service, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so why did that candidate choose to apply for your vacancy?
Yeah.
Because they're looking for a job. That's why. What you didn't do is you didn't headhunt that candidate. So now you're going to have the nerve to go to your client and say, Chris, I've got a perfect candidate for you. Have you?
Yeah.
Have you scoured the entire market and you're coming back to me with the perfect candidate?
Yeah.
Or have you put an advert out and something bit and somebody applied and that person happened to be the one that answered the phone and sent you through the application and reg form and completed it? So actually that makes them the perfect candidate. Like, we used to challenge our guys all the time, like, stop saying things like perfect candidate.
But it's also it's amazing at how recruitment consultants do this as well. But a client will look at a CV and he or she will make a judgment on that CV based on the black and white words on that CV. Yeah. But then if you sent them a video, like, oh my God, I didn't realise that. But that guy's got lots of personality. Or he hasn't got a lot. It's just that
I can look past the lack of this because he's got this. Again, we say this. Let's go. Yeah. When was the last time you bought a television by just looking at the instruction manual?
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Or very worst case, you at least look at the pictures of it, and
or a car and just look at the picture. You want to test drive the car first.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? No, you don't want to look through the manual. No. You're like, this has got all the spec that I'm looking for. This sounds like a great product for me. Yeah. You know, that's what a CV is. And I mean, I had this recently with Rob Kenwood on LinkedIn because I was like, I'm waiting for the day that kind of video / kind of HTML website CVs become mainstream because I think it will be a massive game changer, and you can really put in things like automation and AI from a talent acquisition perspective. Just scrape through, look for the key things that you're after. A lot more than just keywords, and go, right, here's your best 10, right? And he was like, no, not in my lifetime. You're never going to see the end of a CV because of a whole host of reasons. And I was kind of like, this is my point, right? Like, this is exactly the point. Like, portfolios are a thing within marketing. In tech, people ask for GitHub accounts. Like, individual markets and sort of verticals are asking for things above and beyond the CV.
Yeah,
right? You send a portfolio, don't you? When you're in sales, you used to turn up with our here's all the clients that I've won and here's what money I've made with them.
Oh, totally. But why can't you extend that out to your clients, right? And say to your clients, look, this role in this business is awesome, and you're paying me enough money to articulate that to the candidates. But I can do that till the cows come home. But why don't you, Mr. CEO, Mr. Hiring Manager, why don't you put together a 3-minute video of the role while you've joined it? If I have that in my hands, I pretty much know I can attract the top talent because it's like, so it's that kind of thinking.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. Yeah, flip it back on the client, right? And go, okay. Because if actually, so I had it once actually, we were recruiting for a CMO for a large airline, and part of the application process was they wanted a 2 to 3 minute video of the candidate, and I was like, that's great. Why don't you guys do one first?
Yeah.
And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, Well, you can't ask them to do it if you're not going to do it, right?
Yeah.
But they get to see your personality as well. So either they'll match back, or they'll look at that and be like, I can't work with that person. That person is either, way too much energy, or no, I like people like this. And do you know what I mean? And so, I like that. Just throw it back to them. But again, all part of business development.
And it's different as well. It's like people think they're a certain way on camera. And I look at myself, actually, I'm quite good on camera. And I used to do training courses back in the day where I used to play back a phone call that a consultant made. And he went, I had no idea it sounded like that. And it's kind of like, what I'm trying to say here is that if you're constantly hiding behind email, constantly hiding, you're never going to improve and learn. So it's not an easy thing. We're not saying that video or podcast is the holy grail and the only thing to do. But if you keep doing the same things and expecting the same results,
I think it is? It be you.
Yeah.
Right? I had this the other day. I was talking to my mentor the other day, and he was like, "How are you getting on with pushing like RecTalks and the self-service bit and this, that, and the other?" And I was like, "Yeah, not too bad. I'm getting a few no's and not interested in it. Marketing budget's tight." And he was like, "All right, let's have a quick look through the messages and stuff." And he was like, "They didn't sound like you. Like, none of them sound like you. You pitch into them, which is fine.
Yeah.
But what they see on LinkedIn and on your comments and on your videos and the way that you are, that's not this person.
Yeah.
So why don't you just try just being you with your messages and stuff?"
Right.
And I dropped a head of marketing message last night. Only because I just happened to be working, kids are in bed late and all the rest of it. And I happened to be working. I was like, I know it's late, so I'm hoping this isn't pinging your phone, right? And if it does, I'm really sorry. But, mate, come on. You're at the Recruitment Expo next week, in March. It will be probably next week where this conference goes out. I was like, explain to me why your marketing budget can account for being at the Recruitment Expo, but can't afford £99 a month to claim your page with me for a targeted audience, and for me to shout about how great you are to that targeted audience across a multitude of social channels. Like, am I missing something?
Yeah.
And then he messaged back this morning. He was like, "That's really funny. It's a really good point. Let's line up a call next week."
I love that. And
I was like, that's what we talk, right?
Yeah.
Just, mate, why are we not in business together? And I did, and that's what I started then doing. It was just like, right, you guys are in this space. This is what you do. You know who I am. Why are we not doing business together? Like, what is it? What's the objection? Because I have this thing, I've always said that objections are either one or two things, either cash or it's creative, right?
Yeah.
They either can't afford what you're doing or they don't like what you're doing. Now, if they don't like what you're doing, you can't change that.
Yeah.
But if they can't afford what you're doing, you might be able to work on that.
What you're saying here is gold in terms of like, the deal didn't go in because, and we do an autopsy afterwards because you didn't ask the right fucking questions from there. Just ask them what's stopping you from doing it.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
And that's exactly I used. But what I just said there is what I used to say to the clients when I'm trying to get onto PSLs, or I was talking to them about, I'll have a think about whether we use you or not. Listen, what I find in this game is this comes down to one or two things: cash or creative. So which one is it? If it's a cash issue, and you can't afford the use of a recruitment agency, or you can't afford my fees,
let's maybe find a different way where you can.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
If it's a creative thing and we're not bonding, we're not gelling, or you haven't bought into me and my ability to do this job for you, then say that. So I can learn from it, but I can also know to take you off my list because we're never going to do business together. Like, you know what I mean? Until either I change my approach or you change your requirements.
Yeah. And I think that expands out to life without getting too off track as well. It's about not being afraid to get the feedback. The best feedback you can get is what the client doesn't want. Once you know that, you won't give them what they don't want.
That's it.
It's brilliant.
Give me this straight. Yeah, that's it. No, I like that. Right. So what have you got going on? Have you got things that are coming up that you want to plug? This is your chance. The camera's there. Shoot.
I've got I love this podcast. I've got my own podcast, the Purpose-Led Leadership Podcast. I've had some great guests on there, and that's going really well. And I've got some more guests coming up. I also am an NED business coach, business mentor. So any recruitment businesses out there that need help scaling. I don't really want to plug anything. There is one thing actually. There's an app called Jack. JAAQ, Just Ask a Question. It's a mental health app. And it's a modern new age app where, unlike the archetypal ones that are out there now, it's a real cool way for men, women, whoever who are going through some shit with their mental health to talk to other people, to look at other videos, like a TikTok type thing. And I think in this sector, people would benefit from having a little go with that and seeing what it's all about.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, people always see the smiley, like success version of what you put out there, right?
Yeah. Oh, mate.
They don't see all the shit that goes on to get you to that point, and the things that you've had to kind of swallow, and you know, the shit you've had to eat and like the taste of to get to this point. And
Absolutely.
so, I like the fact that we're in a society now where people are a lot more switched on and in tune with like mental health, especially men, right?
Yeah, come on, we've all got mental health, and those that say they haven't, I think you're better off owning it and talking about it. And the more people and conversations we can have like this,
that's it.
The better, mate. Yeah.
I saw a wiki clip with Simon Sinek, and he was like, in their kind of group of people, they've got a thing where they're like, no, you know, everyone always says like, oh, you know, if you were struggling, you should have just reached out. But reaching out is the hard part, right? So they created this theory and this thing of just ask 8 minutes, because then we know. Like, so if I go, Chris, you've got 8 minutes. Right. I know you need that 8 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, this is an issue. This isn't just a oh, man, you got a second. You know what I mean? And he's like, we call it the 8 minutes. And I was like, I love that. I wish that would spread more. You know?
Yeah, I think. I've been asked this question. I know it's your podcast. What? And you mentioned the men thing. I'll ask you the question. Why do you think it's worse in men? Because the numbers say that it is in terms of suicide and mental health. What's your take on that?
I think that because society has just been constructed that way, right? Men were always supposed to be the strong ones. Men, you know, men are strong. Men are breadwinners. Men are the leaders and that kind of thing, right? And in a male-dominated society, which we have historically been in, it was always going to be that actually they were the ones that were going to fail the most and fail the hardest. You know, it's harder to have the world and lose it all than to never have it in the first place. And because there's more men that have the opportunity afforded to them to do that, that's why there's an increase in men that succeed and fail and go into dark times, but also men that see other men succeeding and fail, like succeeding and pushing them into dark times, right?
I agree. I think we're judged, and our worthiness is dictated to on how much money we earn a lot, and there's a lot of, or the status or the role, and if you lost your job or whatever, you know, it can have a devastating effect. And I think that's just the way society is constructed. I'm not saying it's not bad for women, because it is, and in many cases women have much more disadvantages than men, and all sorts of different genders and that kind of stuff. But this specific subject is close.
But the situation that men find themselves in is that because it's widely accepted that men have that head start. It's almost like, hold on, you had a head start and you still fucked it up.
Right.
Like, do you know what I mean? And you kind of, I think men are harsher on themselves than others are. You know, we always seem to think that what people are going to think about me. And generally speaking, because so many men have got so much shit going on, they don't give a fuck. For the most part, nobody really cares what other people are going through. From a male to male perspective. But the male gives himself that, like, what other people think, I'm a failure, blah blah blah, and they beat themselves up to the point of depression and mental health and anxiety.
I agree.
And it's not an external thing. Women haven't done anything wrong. Other men haven't done anything wrong.
No, it's just the way it is, almost. Yeah. But the more conversations like this, you know, I've done quite a lot on this kind of stuff, and I think it's a courageous thing to lead with vulnerability and openness about some of the, you know, anxious and traumatic times we have as men. And I see that, you know, even when I'm interviewing someone, or if you used to, when a salesperson walks in and they're full of beans and they're gregarious, I think, that's great, but what are you covering up, mate? What are you masking? You know,
normal people don't behave like that.
So you know, there's a balance, isn't there, with all these things?
No, totally agree. Cool, well, look, this has been really cool. I really appreciate your time today. This has been good. We should definitely do this again.
Yeah, no, brilliant, mate.
Later in the year, we'll be doing kind of RecTalk on the road, where we're going out to other people's kind of venues and offices and stuff, rather than getting everyone to come here.
Oh, right, yeah.
So I'll definitely pop your eye on the list for that, and we'll pop over to you.
No, I'll look forward to it. An absolute pleasure, and looking forward to it coming out. Thanks for all your time, mate.
This has been good.
Nice one, mate.
Glad we did this. Cheers,
mate.
Cheers.
That was a good one, I thought.
Yeah, that was good.
Well done.
Really good.
A bit different, wasn't it? But we went deep on the old BD stuff, which I loved.
Yeah.